Hello and welcome to this session. So, continuing from our previous sessions, we'll talk about the primary key constants. That we already know what a unique constant is. Unique constant basically tells you that you should have a unique value. Now, primary key is also very similar to it, except that it has an additional rule that the value should be unique, but plus it cannot be not null. So it cannot be null. So you cannot have a null. In your unique constraint, we have seen that null can also be acceptable, but here in unique constraint, the value should be unique and it cannot be null. All right. So let's drop this table again and then recreate this table. So here we wanted a unique constraint. So we want a primary key constraint, right? So let's say we have a primary key on email. So I'm going to say primary key PK. So here I would say primary key and I want this on customer email only. So let's do this. So you can also say you can also have a combination of customer email, comma customer gender, or any type of combinations. But we are only looking at. But let's look at just one combination right now. So let's go and create this table. So the table is created. So let's go ahead and execute this. So this is the simple query that we have been using to insert the data. So it has just all the details that is required. So the first record will go smoothly. If you select the data, you will see that the data is available, right? Now, if you try to insert this data again, it will have an error. It says that, hey, it violated the primary key, right? So it says unique constraint here, but it's basically like this is where some people get confused, like, why is it saying unique constant but it's not primary key, right? So that is how the report will be. It basically says like it is expecting the unique value, right? It is expecting the unique value. Try to insert a duplicate value, but it is actually expecting a unique value, right? That is why it is saying unique constraint. Okay, now let's change this, right? So now I'm going to pass null here. So we have primary key constraint, right, on the customer email. Let's add this as null, right? So now let's see, right? See, it says cannot insert null, right? So earlier it was saying that a constraint key is violated, which is unique because we're trying to insert the duplicate value. Now it is saying that okay, you cannot insert null because we have set it as primary key. So primary key cannot accept null and it has to be unique. So basically two different things. That's what I mentioned here at the stage, like it is unique plus not null. All right. So this is the concept of primary key, and similar to the earlier keys, that similar to the earlier unique key that we have seen, you can also add multiple columns here. So let's say customer name, right? So this particular combination should be unique. So let's just drop this table. All right. So let's clear this up. Now what I'm going to do is like I will say customer name and email, right? So this combination should be unique and this combination cannot be null, right? So this is a very good example where customer name is John, it is not null, but customer email is null. But that combination, if you look at this, right? So here it says, oh, sorry, I think we dropped the table, but we did not recreate the table. So let's go ahead and recreate this table. So the table is created. Now let's go back and execute this and see the data. Okay. Now see, cannot insert null, right? So now you may ask a question. Okay, why is it like the you have this customer name, right? You have this customer name. The customer email is null, but see, a combination of these two, right? Null is something which you can only check is existent, whether it's there or not. You cannot have any sort of operations on it. It will always take the present. So even though customer email is null and customer name is not null, it's still that combination is still considered as null because you cannot put any operations on null, right? So that is the reason here it says that you cannot insert null. Okay, so now let's change this. So I'm gonna say john@gmail.com. Now let's execute this. You will see that a row is inserted. If you try to execute this again, you will have the problem where unique constant, right? So similarly we have seen, right? So this is the concept of primary key. A primary key basically tells you that the value cannot be null and that the value has to be unique. You cannot have duplicates. All right. So this is all about primary key, and we'll see some other constraints in our next class.